What is up, everybody? Brett here, bringing you back for some more Total War Warhammer 2 free-for-alls. Today I'm going to be playing as Alarielle with Alarielle the Radiant, and you can already see here from one of the builds that we have a bit of a meme build going. Let me slow it down for you guys, and we can go ahead. Let's quickly take a look at the Vampire Counts player, and playing as the Von Karstein variant of the Vampire Counts, for those of you who aren't aware. Decided to take Vlad and an entire army of on-foot White Kings with pretty much all of their abilities. So let's get in here and check these out if we can. There we go. Heroic Killing Blow as well as the Potion of Strength, giving weapon damage and armor piercing as well as Foe Seeker. These guys are very tanky. 90 armor, silver shields. I like to take them as one-ofs in my Vampire Count armies, the same way that I used the Paladin in the previous video, if you were watching that. Just as a frontline anchor for low morale troops. And I see him to the left of my position, and I'm going to go ahead and just walk away from him. He's so slow, he's going to have to walk all the way here if he wants to engage with me, and by then the battle will be well underway, and I'll be able to take that engagement any way I want to. The Empire player here, I liked his build. I thought it was pretty fun. Unfortunately, I felt like he was a bit of a newer player, and his formation is kind of what gave that away to me initially. You'll see here he has Hammer of the Witches, one of the most powerful artillery pieces in the game. It has an innate physical resistance as well as magic damage, huge range of 450, and just an enormous armor-piercing missile damage. But the way he placed it amongst his units here, and it's going to be obstructed. Its line of sight, it's not going to be very good. Placing a cannon kind of far back in a position like this to overwatch here or on some sort of hill or slope to give it a better line of sight would have been much better for this artillery piece. Front line of halberdiers, I like that. They're very sturdy. Armor piercing is good against most infantry units, and yeah, they're just a great front line. Very tightly packed. Yeah, just the formation itself is not too great. Backline of greatswords here. More armor piercing, top tier infantry for the Empire, and the silver bullets, more magic piercing, armor piercing, range damage from the Empire player. Once again, you know, bad formation. He's got them saturated in the front here with all of these infantry, and there's not going to be really much room for them to fire. One Witch Hunter, I like that a lot. He does bring accusation on him. It's a damage over time ability, great against single targets. And we'll see how much value he's able to generate from him. 2 units of Empire Knights, very cheap, but decent at getting in the back lines of your opponents and causing a lot of damage to infantry. Outriders with grenade launchers, a unit you don't get to see very often, but if microed well, they can do a ton of damage. You get them up and around an enemy group, and you can just watch these guys tear units apart in big blobs. So my artillery piece, my Eagle Claw bolt thrower, is already firing here into the Empire Knights. Don't want you guys to miss anything. The Lizardman player was able to sneak up and around with these Chameleon Skinks who do have stalk. They fire in 360 as well as they can fire while moving. They're great anti-skirmishers because they themselves have 40% missile resistance as part of their kit. They also do poison damage, so units that try something like a slower cavalry unit, like the Empire Knights, let's say, were they to try and get in on these Chameleon Skinks, they could shoot them with it. They have actually 48 speed. I'm looking at that now. That's pretty huge. So you subtract the speed from the Empire Knights due to poison, and you kite, and these guys can kite them all day long. So getting them up and around the Empire player was a solid strategy for sure. And let's see, the Lizardman player went very wide with his formation and somewhat elite with his infantry, and he was able to do that because he took the Sora's Old Blood on no mount whatsoever, and a hero unit, the Sora Scar veteran. So they look very similar, but one is the Lord variant, one is the hero variant, as well as the Bastiladon Revivification Crystal. Just a good monstrous unit in melee, but also providing that healing that they will need. And a Skink Priest with the Lore of Beasts, able to summon a Feral Manticore or just spam Flock of Doom. A good choice. Especially in a free-for-all, it's a good way to generate value. A few Skinks, but mostly Saurus Spears with shields. would have been very good against my army where we're facing each other, and a few units of Temple Guard. So these guys are going to be the MVPs this battle for the Lizardman player. And for my army, quick breakdown here, because I'm going to get in right away with these Dragon Princes. These aren't the Fireborn, these are the standard beautiful green looking Averlorn Dragon Princes. And they're going to get in here. They're not anti-large as I mentioned, but they are still very powerful damage dealing cav units. With their physical resistance, they're going to have no problem tearing up these Empire Knights. So I can go ahead and speed it up a little bit. So they're going to engage. I have Alarielle the Radiant, who's going to be providing an Earthblood here. I took Banishment as my offensive spell, my one offensive spell. That's about what I like to do in these types of battles, to strip down units and to make sure I get value out of them. You'll see here I have two Handmaidens of the Everqueen on horseback. I have them with no abilities whatsoever. I'm using them purely for their encouragement aura, their anti-large bonus, as they do have halberds, and for their range capabilities. And they're very strong and ranged. Karl Franz kind of came to the wrong neighborhood by choosing to kind of pick on me. I have lots of answers for him. I have the Everqueen's Court Guard, huge damage dealers from range, enormous 180 range, as well as two Lothern Sea Guard. The non-shielded variant, I didn't feel like I would need to contest the skirmisher battle that way, so I'm just using them basically to use all their ammunition. When they're out of ammo, they turn into spearmen, and I love that kind of value, that dual value you get from having them. So you see here we decimate these Empire Knights and we chase off Karl Franz. Now Karl Franz is no Boris Todbringer. He doesn't have regen innately. If you don't take a Jade Wizard with the Empire, then you will not be able to heal any damage that Karl Franz takes. So he's getting in on the Chameleon Skinks. The Great Swords and the Halberdiers are engaging in melee. To our opponent's credit, he pulled back the Silver Bullets and is using them to take down the Revivification Crystal Bastiladon. And his Witch Hunter is getting some firing here into the front line. And these Outriders with grenade launchers, they went into the trees here, perhaps going on a kind of roundabout route to get into the rear of the Lizardman player. But I took advantage of that and used my ranged units to skirmish them down. Front line of Simple Spearmen, and I also took the Keepers of the Flame, one of the most powerful units in the game, infantry-wise. Certainly the strongest halberdier unit in the game. They explode on death, dealing damage to the enemy. Did get a nice banishment here on this clumped up force, and let's see how many kills we have on Alarielle. So 66 kills, almost all of them certainly from that one banishment. And I'm parking my Handmaidens here on this excellent cliff area. A little bit of a slope here, giving them some overwatch. They can hit everything from here. If we look at their range, it's 180. So I'm picking my targets carefully. I'm using my Dragon Princes to screen, going back and forth between Chameleon Skinks and any vulnerable Empire units. And I've got my range units in this overwatch position here, taking pot shots at the back lines of whoever I can. I'm moving my Spearmen in kind of a defensive posture here. If I need to retreat with any of my units, I'll pull them back behind these Spearmen, and they should be safe. I've been slowly shooting and scooting with my Ewclaw Bolt Thrower, trying to poke down important targets, but also not get caught by the ridiculous army that's headed my way. I felt like the Keepers of the Flame, in addition to a unit of Spearmen to help them not take all of the damage themselves, would be sufficient to at least hold back the White Kings. I didn't have any expectations of being able to defeat them here. I was pretty terrified of them getting into melee with me, but luckily my Hero and Lord Corps are very mobile. So in a position like this, another banishment going down, getting a lot more value. Let's check the kills real quick. 110. So at least another 40 or so kills for Alarielle. But in a position like this where I find myself on the outside of a two-man battle, able to shoot in, I'm going to go for vulnerable big targets. Things like Karl Franz, this Witch Hunter here, who is isolated. I'm going to use my mobility to pick off annoying units like the Skinks. But in situations like this, and this is the main point that I want to make, my goal was not to help the Lizardman player, who I felt was going to win that engagement. What I want to do is strike a balance between who I choose to go after and which targets. The last thing I want to do is help the Lizardman player crush the Empire player, And then the Lizardman player, because it was so easy for them with my help, they come at me with a nearly full force that didn't take a lot of that damage. So I tried to spread out the damage that I was able to do, help to destroy some of the more important targets. And you'll see here I have my Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower going on to the Bastillodon instead of, let's say, taking out Karl Franz. He's no longer a threat to me, but the Lizardman player certainly is. And I'm pulling back some of my units to screen. And you'll see here a Wind of Death barely misses. I was able to dodge it at the last second with my Spearman. But I'm tying up all of these units. The Keepers of the Flame are taking a lot of damage. And at some point here, I think I get a heal or a Star of Avalorn to keep them into the fight. And I'm going up and around with the Spearman. I want to surround them. Once again, I'm protecting my Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower. I have no real chance of killing these guys with Spearmen. But keeping them back long enough for me to use all of my ammunition and to really take out the Lizardman player is really my goal here. So I charged in the Dragon Princes, once again, just to hold them back. This was unfortunate here, though, and I didn't expect this ability on the Lizardman roster. On the Saurus Old Blood here, he has an ability called, let's go ahead and check it out. It's one that you don't see taken very often, but I think it's called, and of course I can't click on it. Anyway, it's called the Plaque of Dominion, I believe, and it lowers leadership by 8. So he was able to effectively rout a lot of my units that I tried to engage with here, mainly the Dragon Princes, and he'll get a chance to use it again here in a moment. And he was able to rout units that otherwise would have come back to me quite easily. So pretty unfortunate that a unit of 20 Dragon Princes there shuffled right off the battlefield. I could have easily healed them back up quite well with Alarielle the Radiant. So I get my Handmaidens in, and there it is, he's procced it. And I'm going to get a third banishment, a beautiful banishment, on this globbed up Saurus Spears and Temple Guard. And my opponent is rushing straight in here with these Temple Guard into my Lothern Sea Guard. But thankfully, the Vampire player, he bowed out. I guess he realized his build was quite cheesy and he wasn't perhaps having as much fun as he thought he would. Star of Avalorn here, going to keep my Handmaidens fighting. And I appreciated him bowing out. I mean, it was a little bit unfair perhaps to the other two players, but he was coming straight for me, so I did have that pressure. Temple Guard, one of my favorite units in the game. I'm barely going to manage to pull my Spearmen in front of my Lothern Sea Guard. I'm just going to let them fight. At this point, I don't feel super threatened by the armies here. Pulling Alarielle in and amongst these Handmaidens, and now that my flank is secured, I can bring in some of my infantry. Constantly switching targets here with the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower. I left it in its heavy armor piercing anti-large mode. Not just because a lot of the units I've been firing at are in fact large, but the accuracy is necessary whenever you're hoping to pinpoint these heroic units. And I've almost got the Old Blood off the field, 160 damage. HP rather left on him, and yeah, that plaque was able to break off one of my Handmaidens, and at the time of playing I remember being slightly surprised that she was wavering so heavily despite how much health she still had left. And this isn't a great fight for them. The idea of sending them in against all these anti-large spear units and halberds was to hold them back and allow my infantry time to regroup and come into this fight, as well as giving my units more time for overwatch with the remaining ammunition that I had. The Everqueen's Court Guard were able to fire all of their ammunition in the initial engagement here, and then I brought them up and around the White Kings and got them in the back. And when I got that full surround, that was when the Vampire Accounts player decided to concede the battle. Now, I've got full rout here going on all of the Lizardman players, but these Temple Guard are just beasts fighting to the last. They're the last unit on the field for the Lizardman player that isn't routing, shaken. And yeah, they're winning this fight so handily that they're steady. Their morale is steady. That's incredible. And that's why you take these guys. They are your fight to the last man unit on the Lizardman roster. You can watch some of these cool animations as they get deep into these spearman units, who really have not much chance. If with just a little bit of support, a single temple guard could certainly take out 3 spearman units. They're unique amongst maybe every roster in the game for the fact that they are halberd units who also have bronze shields. So great anti-large, and they're great in the front line. They're not just going to melt to any kind of ranged fire. So the Everqueen's Court Guard here getting in the back, and that's going to be all she wrote. So let's go ahead and take a look at the breakdown here. Alarielle the Radiant, I chalked up about 144 kills with Banishment, and that's why you take at least one major offensive skill, or spell rather. And in a free-for-all, you can pretty much guarantee units are going to be blobbed up, so Banishment I thought was a great choice here. The Handmaidens did a lot of work against Karl Franz for most of that fight. I had them focusing him down, keeping him back. Spearmen did what they were supposed to do. The Keepers of the Flame stood pretty strong against those White Kings. I don't know if too many other units in the game would have been able to hold up against this many heroic units for as long as they did. Lothern Sea Guard and the Emperor's Court Guard able to fire all of my ammunition is exactly what you want. And the Dragon Princes, despite routing, 162 kills. So using them like vultures circling the battlefield after they initially broke the Empire's cavalry, there was really nothing else to challenge their speed. So try to use them effectively. Unfortunately, we were too near the edge of the battlefield for them to rally. And the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower, I used all of the ammunition there. Great value for 700 gold, and was able to take down really tough targets. Not too much to say about this. That was just kind of ridiculous. You should always expect in free-for-alls for someone, at least one person, to bring a build like this. And that's what free-for-all is for, especially if you're playing with your friends, you know, and you all kind of agree to not take it too seriously. But yeah, that was a bit too cheesy for my liking. The Empire player missed out on getting a lot of value from the Hammer of the Witches. Just poor placement in the future. Not sure you'll ever be watching this Fetos 2013. But you want to spread your front line out significantly. Pull your ranged units back and your artillery back even further. Empire Knights are pretty good at screening for your back line. So let's say had I tried to get in Dragon Princes into the back line to shut down something like the Hammer of the Witches, the Empire Knights could have then swooped in one at a time with maybe support from Karl Franz to attempt to stop him. Also, small critique of your build. No caster on the Empire. I would say that's almost always a mistake. The Empire is a faction that really relies on its magic. So I would caution anyone against never taking a caster on an Empire roster. I think you always need it. And unfortunately, the Silver Bullets weren't able to generate value, as well as the Outriders. I focused these guys heavily with my ranged, and the silver Bullets were just in a poor position, even to make use of their stalk mechanic. You can hide them in strange places that you wouldn't be able to otherwise position your units, handgunner units, and they can get kind of surprise angles on your enemies if you're able to do it that way. And then Captain Titus here, a supporter of the channel, who I greatly appreciate. Yeah, his build was solid. I mean, had it been a 1v1 between him and the Empire, I think he would have smashed that army. A lot of armor piercing here from the Empire. The front line was solid. You see the Greatswords got a lot of kills, and they would have done great versus the Sora Spears and even the Temple Guards. But Titus, to my knowledge, is a more experienced player, and the Empire throwing away their cav against me at the very beginning was probably just too much to come back from. Good kills on the Saurus Old Blood, Chameleon Skinks. I helped to ride them down. So yeah, just good armies from everybody all around. It was a good battle, and I hope you enjoyed watching it and kind of seeing the battle from my tactical perspective. Scooting away from the vampires was part of my success. Scooting and shooting with the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower, important targets, and just using my spearmen to screen while I used my DPS units to do exactly what they were made to do, DPS, as well as being very mobile and precise with my Dragon Princes, I think were my keys to victory there. So thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please smash the like button. And if you are a new subscriber, I've been noticing I'm getting like a subscriber every day or two. And for me right now, that's awesome. I love to see that. if you're subscribers, a lot of times people on YouTube, they have their account set to private, so I can't see who you are, and I'd love to know who's watching the videos. So, by all means, keep your account private if that's what you want. But if you leave a comment in the comment section, just so I can know who you are, and in future videos, I'll know, if you were an early adopter of my channel, and, how long you've been around, and we can maybe start some kind of conversation going. That would be cool. So, subscribe if you're watching this and you liked it, and you're not a subscriber already. I appreciate every single subscriber I get. As of right now, I think my channel's at about 13 subscribers, and my mom's not one of them, so I'm pretty happy that people are seeing these videos and enjoying them enough to subscribe. So that's it, guys. That's it for me today, and without any further ado, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.